Hey everyone, we're going to talk about IELTS Speaking Part 2. In Speaking Part 2, you get a card and you have a minute to write your notes and then you 2 minutes to talk about your answers. So I like to divide my answer into the 4 different parts. So I speak for about 30 seconds for each part. I might speak a little bit at the top here as well. So try and divide your answer. And the best way to do that is to underline some key words and then write just a few words here about what your idea is. We're trying to just get your ideas down. So here we're talking about a place where you got lost recently. How did you feel when you were lost? Who led you the right way? Have you been to this place again? And what are 3 things to keep in mind when going to a new place? So what do you think are the key words? What would you underline here? Talk about a place where you got lost recently. How did you feel when you were lost? Who led you the right way? What would you do? You can pause the video and think about some of your keywords, or you can just keep watching. Okay, here I'm going to show you what I've thought are some of the keywords. So talk about a place what is this place where you got lost? Okay, so the place where I got lost is actually my friend or my cousin Tom at his new house. So I'm creating a situation here. This is not a real event. I'm just making it up to make it fit my answer. So lunch at his new house. How did you feel when you were lost? So it's all about the feeling. So you should have at least 1 confused. You might have 2 confused and stressed. Who led you the right way? So who was it that told you the right way? Well, it's actually Tom when I called him on the phone. Have you been to this place again? Well, yes, I have been to his house of every few months, and we hang out together. We go there from time to time. And what are 3 things to keep in mind when going to a new place? Well, the 3 things I think are important are the time of day when you travel, what the weather's like, and if there's any deadlines. Do you need to get there quickly or not? Okay, so let's look at the actual way that I've framed up these answers. And what I've done is I've used this strategy, which I often talk about, the ARAC strategy: answer, reason, example, contrast. So you don't always have to use all 4 parts in your answer. You do always need to give your answer. Most of the time you'll give a reason. Sometimes you can give an example. And you know what? If you have nothing to talk about, or if there's something that you are really confused, you can give a contrast. On the other hand, and kind of talk about something which is not exactly answering the question, but it's a contrast, and that will help you to fill out your time. Let's look at how we've approached this. First of all, talk about a place where you got lost recently. About a year ago, I got lost on the way to my cousin's new house. So I'm using the past tense, I got lost, and I'm telling a story and I'm giving a time frame. Often when we give a time frame, we have the past simple tense. So that's what I've done there. I got lost on the way to my cousin's new house. Tom had just moved in and he was having a lunch for about 20 people, including some of the friends from college, as well as family members like myself. It was my first time traveling there by car, and it was in a new part of the city that I didn't know very well. Okay, so what am I doing? I am giving my answer and I'm giving my reason. This is my reason of how how I got lost, and a bit of an example here as well. This is actually the example itself, with the situation in where I got lost. Okay, so I'm framing up, I'm talking about the start of the story. As you can see, I'm using my past tenses. This is interesting. Had just moved in. This is actually present perfect tense, which shows a tense like a past before a past. So that is the most distant past, and the most recent past is actually a past continuous, was having. Okay, so I'm using some fairly sophisticated tenses here because I'm trying to get that high score. Now this answer would probably be around a 8 or a 9 because it's got a lot of natural phrases in here. But just to show that I'm actually using this structure here with had and moved, and that's the past perfect, and then this is the past continuous, to show that it's a lunch which is happening over a period of time, a longer period of time. It was my first time, so I'm using past simple there again, and it was in a new part of the city. So mostly past simple. It's possible that you could use past simple all the way through, but just to give that extension to show what happened first. So he had moved in and then he had lunch. So obviously he had moved in, that was the most distant, and then the most recent past was the lunch. How did you feel when you were lost? To be honest, I felt a bit confused. So I'm answering it straight away. See, I've got this answer is popping up straight away. I felt a bit confused. I thought I knew the way, but actually that wasn't correct. My cousin had written down instructions for me to follow, so I thought I knew the way. However, I didn't follow the directions well enough because I was driving at the time. Again, interestingly, I've got another use of the past perfect, had written down. So because he had written it down before I went to travel. Okay, so we're talking about two pasts. A distant past, had written it down, and then the more recent past when I was actually traveling there. I didn't follow, so again, a past negative, past simple negative well enough because I was driving. Now, did the driving take 1 minute? No, the driving took 45 minutes. Or it took a longer period of time. So that's why I want to emphasize the length of time by saying I was driving. Still past, but it's past continuous. Not only was I confused, I was feeling a bit stressed because I knew I was going to be late for the lunch. I know this was an important occasion for Tom, so I didn't want to get there too late and embarrass myself in front of his friends. Okay, so I'm giving some really nice examples here. So I'm giving my answer. Yes, I was confused and embarrassed. Reason, this is why. And the example, well, this is actually what happened. Who led you the right way? When I knew I was lost for sure, I called Tom on his mobile phone and asked him for directions. He could probably tell that I was a bit stressed from the tone of my voice, and he told me not to worry. He slowly went through the directions, and I was able to get to the place easily. Once I knew how to get to the local shopping centre, that was only a few minutes from his place. Okay, so again, I'm telling the story. I'm using my past simple, I'm using my past continuous to talk about this. But I'm also able to explain the kind of the resolution to my problem. Who led the right way? Well, Tom. I called him on his phone. Have you been to this place again? Yes, I've been back every few months to hang out with Tom, so I've used some fairly informal language there because it's just my cousin. We're hanging out, okay? It's a good time to use more informal language. So yes, I've been back every few months to hang out with Tom, and I always remember the first time when I got confused. Okay, so again, past. It makes me laugh now because it's actually pretty easy to get there. It makes me, now is present. Okay, so I'm using the present tense because it's happening now, because it is actually pretty easy to get there. So again, I've switched from my storytelling from the past into my current situation using present tense. What are 3 things to keep in mind when going to a new place? Okay, and here I can use my full ARAC strategy. I can use my answer, my reason, my example. I'd say the 3 things to keep in mind are firstly, time of day. In other words, is it a time when there will be lots of traffic on the road? Secondly, so I'm sort of asking a question here, is it a time where there'll be lots of traffic on the road? Secondly, the weather is important. If it's rainy and stormy, you must allow for more time because there will most likely be delays. And finally, you need to consider deadlines. In other words, is there a time when you must be there? Is there a time you must be there by? If there's a clear deadline, you'll need to leave early so you can easily make it in time. Okay, so I've given 3 really good examples. And you know what? I've actually used my signposting language. So I've used firstly, secondly, and finally. So it's very clear to the examiner. When the examiner is listening, they can say, okay, reason 1, reason 2, reason 3. They tick it off. They're happy. You're happy. You get the high score. Here I'm giving a bit of an example. Okay, so we know that I can give examples in my ARAC strategy. For example, last week I went to the city early in the morning and there was heavy traffic because of the time of day. However, I wasn't late because I had left myself extra time. If it had have been stormy weather though, I would have missed my deadline. So what I'm doing here, I'm talking about a time last week when yes, there was heavy traffic because of the time of day. So I'm sort of proving my point here. And I'm saying I wasn't late because I had left extra time. If it had have been stormy weather, so that's quite a sophisticated piece of language into the future. If it was true, then I would have. So it's a conditional, and that's really going to boost my score because I'm showing some really good critical thinking there that I'm answering the question. So there you go. I've got the parts here, this sort of intro part. I've got my first question, my second question, my third question. It's just a couple of lines. And my fourth question really nails it home and allows me to expand and show my good use of tense. And there you have it. It's an example of speaking part 2.